And welcome to Season 2, Episode 7 of our podcast. You may not agree with us.
But
I'm Maris Lowry.
And I'm Eric Thomas.
And we're here for another week to talk about high school football, the Raleigh County Report, college football, and of course, the National Football League. And then at the end of the show, one of our favorite segments, if not our favorite segment, our Barking Dog. And Eric, you and I have been on fire with our Barking Dog.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be a tough week this week, but I got a dog that's going to growl this weekend.
Well, we'll get to that at the end of the show, but I will say that this past weekend, both of our dogs, we did more than growl. We bit, we growled, we clawed, we did it all, didn't we?
Yeah, we forecasted. We said not only are they going to cover, they're going to go in and get the win
outright, and they did. All right, but we'll get to that in due time. So anyway, we want to welcome you in, as we mentioned, and we'll start with the Raleigh County Report, as we always do, and that's brought to you by Window World, and you better get busy if you want to get your home some great windows for winter. You better get on the list. They're getting really busy, and you can reach out to Leanna at Window World. Well, Eric, will start in Class 4A. The Beckley Flying Eagles coming off a loss and a bye, get a big win on the road at Preston.
Yeah, went on the road, a long trip, and the trip's always better coming back down the interstate, getting back in the win column. You know, disappointing losses, I think, for the Beckley program, but they're still all out in front of them. They're right in the mix for a home playoff game if they can get some big wins down the stretch.
And speaking of home, it's homecoming weekend for the Beckley Flying Eagles this weekend, and we know, as I'm sure you know better than I, as a parent of a daughter who's partaking in the homecoming festivities of Beckley, all the distractions you'll have this week. Hopefully that won't move on into the players, but Beckley's homecoming with Riverside this Friday night.
Well, I'll tell you that I think Beckley's trying to rectify that because they have changed, what they normally do during the week. They're not having the parade till after the game, so you don't have all that pomp and circumstance going on. But we'll see how it reacts. I never really thought much about it as a player, but I think nowadays it's such a big deal. Homecoming game, we just say, hey, we're going to go win. I didn't even want to go to the dance if I didn't win the game. So we'll see how it goes. And, I'm right in the mix. I'm not going to say I'm in the mix, but someone in my household has to do all the heavy lifting for homecoming.
And that would probably be the producer and director,
That's
right?
right. Not only was she getting ready for this show, she was getting ready for the poster that has to go on the car and all that. All I did was look at the ruler. I don't know much.
Yeah, we got our Barking Dog, I think, poking his nose here into the first segment. But anyway, the game, as we talked about, Beckley's homecoming game, Beckley 3-2, taking on 1-5 Riverside.
And, Riverside, they were in the game last week. They lost 17-15, a hard-fought game on the road to Spring Valley, which is a 3A school, but it's one of your bigger 3A schools. So, Riverside and Beckley is kind of like Greenbrier East and Beckley. It's real close, and they bring out, I'll say, the best in one another. Riverside will come up here ready to play, especially if they probably circled this because they've been chosen as the homecoming game.
Yeah, the last couple of years, Beckley's got the best of this rivalry, and like I said, that'll be Friday night, homecoming game, Beckley and Riverside. And so, like you said, Beckley's got everything in front of them. They're obviously looking at one game at a time and win this one, and then put yourself in position to try to go get the next one.
Yeah, because there's one big game looming, and we'll be able to talk about that next week. But handle business if you're Beckley. The Flying Eagles need to hold serve at home and get a big win.
Well, we got two Raleigh County opponents battling this week. That is Shady and Liberty. And Eric, that's the game you and I will be at Friday night. That kicks off at 7 o'clock at Glen Daniel. Shady having a really disappointing year. After winning the first game against St. Albans, they've dropped 5 in a row. You and I were at Greenbrier East on Friday, and East beat Shady 43-6. And Liberty coming off a big win over Westside on the road in overtime. Liberty 2-4.
Yeah, and Liberty showed some moxie and some spunk coming back and getting a win. I'm really proud of that program because we know we've mentioned it several times in our previous shows. Their numbers are just down, but the 11 that they put out on the field, they're well coached, they play hard, they don't give up, and that was proven down at Westside coming back for an overtime victory.
Yeah, it's a real battle of Raleigh County. And, I go back in the day, back before Liberty had Clear Fork and Marsh Fork, when it was Trap Hill and Shady. And I'm talking, 50 years ago, but they had battles back then, and that rivalry is still there when Shady and Liberty play.
And I'm glad we chose this game to go do. I'm really excited because you have a reeling Shady program, but still a 3A school playing a 2A school, but you can take that out because Liberty, Shady, all those old rivalries, man, it's good to still mix it up in the county.
We'll also take a look at Independence, the Patriots. There's our Barking Dog a little early, as he thought that maybe we're talking maybe underdog. We haven't done that yet. Anyway, we got Westside 3-2 coming off that home loss to Liberty. They have to go to Coal City to take on Independence, and Independence will be recognizing their first team ever when they had the 1976 team 50 years ago, and they'll
Wow.
be honored at that game on Friday night.
Yeah, that's amazing. I knew from my neighborhood that I grew up in, a couple of guys that were on that team, and that's good to always recognize the past. That's what I think all these teams, they're good now, but they also had a lot of good players back in the day, and it's good to be recognized. A lot of those
Well,
founding fathers, so to
yeah,
speak.
the players back in the day, they're the ones that paved the path for
Yeah.
what players are doing today. And just like with you and I doing this podcast, talking about teams and players, doing games on streaming, video production, something that back when you played, and definitely back when I played in the 70s, nothing like this was even
Well, it
possible.
actually went to VHS with upgrade with me, but back in the day, it was on like reel to reel, those 8 millimeter.
But nothing you can watch
nothing
live
can
like you can
Yeah.
now.
And even that 1976 team, they had to split their home games. They had
Yes.
to play a couple at Stokoe and a couple at Sophia, so they never actually had a home field until 1986.
That's right. Of the 5 home games, they played 2 at Sophia, 2 at Stokoe, and 1 at Beckley.
Yes.
And the one at Beckley, they called it the Colt Bowl. And I can't remember who they played. I'm trying to think, but I remember going to it.
Yeah, and that's what that's what my little league days and going up until like the mid '80s, I'd always ride the bus, with my older brothers. Like, yeah, man, they'd have to get ready and drive to the field, as I almost knocked the mic over, and drive to the field and get ready for the game. So a lot of those guys, if they come and saw the facilities now, they would be in such awe.
Amazed, yes.
Yeah.
Well, as we're recording this on Monday, the ratings won't be released till Tuesday. I got to believe Independence is still going to come in at number
Oh, a
1.
stronghold on number 1.
Even though they had a bye week, they're 5-0, and they'll put that undefeated.
But they got points of Herbert Hoover.
Yes.
The big win right up to date right now is them, winning that game against Herbert Hoover, because that's going to give them some good residual bonus points because they're doing work.
And there's a pile of points at a future opponent with
Yes.
Princeton we'll get to when that time rolls around. But now we look at other big games around the state. And boy, is there a couple of really huge games, and one in 4A, Martinsburg taking on Morgantown. Morgantown comes into this game undefeated, 5-0, and Martinsburg 4-2.
Yeah, and Martinsburg is sitting there going, we've lost a couple out-of-state teams.
Well,
we
one
lost the
out-of-state and one Huntington. Yeah.
Huntington team, but this Morgantown team, this is the team that I've talked to you about.
Right.
And I said I think they might have what it takes this year to not only win the championship, but beat Martinsburg. And this is going to be a litmus test for them, because anytime you play Martinsburg in the regular season, you got a chance to see them again on down the line.
And the thing about it, not just see them, they're playing Martinsburg at Martinsburg. So to me, you're right. The litmus test here, if Morgantown can go in to Martinsburg and beat them there,
That's a
then
statement.
They are probably the favorite.
That is a statement win
Yes.
if they can do it.
Another big clash in AAA will be Greenbrier East 4-1, Princeton 5-0. Coming into after the games last week, Princeton was number 3, Greenbrier East number 2.
Yep.
There's a whole lot of points. This could be a potential playoff matchup too on down the road. This is a real battle.
Yeah, but this battle, I think Greenbrier East really needs to buckle up for, because up to date, they've not seen an offense as prolific as what they're going to encounter Friday night in Honeycutt Stadium, because this Princeton team, you know how we watch the scores. At one point, it could be like 20 to 14, and next thing you know, it's 59 to 21. I mean, they can put points up fast, and they're really good. So, and that Greenbrier East team is good, but this is going to be their test as well up to date, because even with that Beckley team, Beckley's more of a grinding offense, big play capability all across the board at Princeton.
That's right. And speaking of what you just said, when you were giving the scores on Friday, I think when you gave that Winfield Princeton score, you were like, it's 14-7.
I did.
And we ran maybe 3 or 4 plays, and I said, well, score update, and you're like, it's like 35-7, and then next thing you know, it was 59 to 21 or something like that. Yeah.
And that was we must say that was a 12th ranked AAA team.
A very good Winfield
team
yes.
coming in. So it was just not a also ran. So I just think Princeton, they've had a taste of it. They played in the 4A championship, right?
Princeton played in the 3A.
3A before they went to 4 classes, losing to Martinsburg.
Right.
Then they were in the semis last year. Lost to Herbert Hoover.
Bridgeport, I believe it was. Yeah. They had beaten Bridgeport the year before, then lost to them last year. Yeah.
So they know what it is to go deep in the playoffs, and they think they have the team this year to win 3A.
I think another really intriguing game is Bluefield 4-2. Of course, Bluefield, a double A, will take on triple A Nicholas County 2-3, and Nicholas County a game under. This is a very important game for both teams, but really for Nicholas County.
And Nicholas County lost a tough one to Midland Trail last week, and this is Bluefield knows coming off of that Independence loss, they got to handle business down the stretch. They got to win these games. You know, they handle business. You don't know much about the teams from Virginia, certain ones, but you know, they bounce back from that Independence win, and I think they really know that they need this win against Nicholas County.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming up on week 7. We're coming down the stretch. Some teams play 10 straight. Some of them have a bye week and go in to that 11th play week. So, I mean, you know, you don't have a lot of room for error. You've only got minimal games in front of you, and you've really got to start to win them.
And you know, and that's what Freddie Simon probably preaches to his team. You know, their playoff, the coaching staff is playoff battle tested, and they get their teams ready for the postseason.
Yeah, and coming into this week 7, a lot of teams will be in playoff mode starting now.
Every week, every game from here on out is either you better your seed or you play yourself out of the playoffs.
All right, our next segment is college football, and this is brought to you by Pasquale's Italian Restaurant, and they have delicious Italian food plus sandwiches, salads, and seafood. They have catering. They have private parties available, and you can dial them up at 304-255-5253 for all your party needs or whatever you want. But before we move further, we have to do what, Eric?
You have to like, share, and subscribe. My producer, man, she's messing with me tonight.
By the way, the producer, Regina Thomas, known as the Warden, and when you can check us out where?
On Warden Broadcast Network, YouTube, and you can also find us on Facebook.
And as I tell people, I'm facing Eric's book. All right, college football, and there was some big games over the weekend, and we'll talk about what's going on with West Virginia and Marshall. And first of all, we'll start with the top team in the country, Ohio State. They had a beatdown against Minnesota. Your son Peyton was at the game, and I don't know if you had a chance to talk to him. You probably have. So, and I'm sure if you did, you talked about the game. Was the beatdown just as bad in person as it was on television?
He said it was everything. He also had some friends come in, you know, to watch their first time watching Ohio State, so they got to see a festive night. And you know what he talked about most, though, is another game we'll talk about. When you're a true Ohio State fan, which he's really turned into, they worry about what happened in the conference, and they were just celebrating Penn State losing to UCLA.
Penn State, we'll talk about that, losing to UCLA. But Ohio State's got a big conference test on the road this week against Illinois. Illinois got a big win over USC. And they bounced back after getting beat down by Indiana, and then they go on the road and beat Purdue. Yeah. And this is a noon kickoff.
And this Illinois team, they're good at quarterback, well coached. And it will be a tough road test for Ohio State. But I think defense travels, though.
Yeah, I think Ohio State will find a way. But, you know, Ohio State's a 10.5-point favorite. I think this might be a little closer than that.
I think so, too. But, you know, whether it's 3 or 7, or they just want to get the win. And that's the type of team that they have. I think they can grind it out and win and lean on their defense. Don't turn the ball over offensively and smother you defensively.
You know, we talked just a minute ago there about Penn State losing at the Rose Bowl to UCLA. This next game, the Red River Shootout between Oklahoma and Texas. Texas coming off being upset at the Swamp in Florida.
Yeah, and I think this is a must-win game for Texas.
It is, because they got 2 losses.
And Oklahoma's playing with their backup quarterback. So if you're Texas, you really get eliminated if you lose to Oklahoma with their backup.
Right, and you know, you and I talked about this last week's podcast. We talked about Billy Napier of Florida, how Florida not only had to have a good show, they couldn't get blowed out. Even if they lost, they had to hang in there. Well, they win the game upright, so he's safe for another couple of weeks. Yeah. But that was a good win for Florida, and I think Texas is not quite the team that everybody thought they were at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of people want to lean on and trash the quarterback, but they had a lot of guys defensively back. So here's what I always tell a lot of people. Unless the quarterback's turning it over doing a lot, your defense still, he's not out there playing defense. And I don't think they play good enough. Their defense is not as advertised. They're just not. They're not smothering people like I thought they would.
Yeah, I think the loss about Penn State hurt more because that's their second conference loss, and they also lost to a way worse team, UCLA, than what Texas did.
Yeah, I mean, well, they were 24 point.
26.5 point.
Yeah, that's unheard of to lose that game. And I think Franklin, the only thing saves him is his buyout. And they have plenty of money to do it, but I just think he doesn't. With all the talent and all the stuff that he has available, I don't think he's up there as a coach.
I will say this: I think if Penn State would miss the playoffs, he could be out.
Yeah,
if they miss it. And
definitely.
they got to go to Ohio State. They
They
got
have
a
a
couple other
chance.
games that they could
Yeah,
miss the playoffs.
they could miss the playoffs.
And speaking of a big game in the Big Ten, you've got two undefeated teams as Indiana travels to Oregon. And I think you're talking about litmus tests. I think this will tell how good Indiana is when they go on the road to Oregon.
Yeah, because it's so tough. Ohio State lost out there last year, so that shows
A
you.
lot of teams have
A lot
lost
of
out
teams,
there.
you go out there, it's a long trip, travel way out west. And I just think Indiana, it's an uphill battle for them this week.
I think Dante Moore is one of the top quarterbacks in the country, the quarterback for Oregon. You know,
No.
he was recruited heavily by Notre Dame and had committed to Notre Dame. And then at the last minute, he decided to go UCLA and then transfer to Oregon.
Yeah, I was very impressed when I saw him in the Penn State game. He's everything is advertised.
So that'll be a big game. And of course, you know, you're talking about your son Peyton, Ohio State, as they play their game. They'll be watching Michigan, their arch rival, as Michigan goes to the West Coast to take on Southern California at the Coliseum.
Yeah, and I think this is a tough one, but they call them the team up north. They don't.
Yeah,
even
they
say
don't call them Michigan the team
They-
up north.
yeah,
But I'm not, since I'm not all that down with Ohio State,
Yeah.
I could say
yeah,
Michigan,
the team
right?
up north. But I think USC, and I told you this off air, USC has one of the best players
Yeah.
that I've seen this year in their wideout. I don't know his name, but he just catches everything in the vicinity. He is good. And I think Michigan kind of grinds on offense.
They do.
So for them to
Boring.
win, they need to score, I think, 28 points. And it's been a struggle for them to really, they run the ball. Even when they beat Nebraska, I think they threw for like 88 yards or something like that. But they can run the ball really well. So it'll be a big physical game. If Michigan wants to win that, I think they have to keep it from being a track meet.
I think this is an elimination game. I think the loser of this game will be out of the college football playoff.
Oh, definitely be out. And then the only thing Michigan will have to look forward to is trying to ruin
Ohio
Ohio
State's
State's season.
All right, we'll take a look at the West Virginia Mountaineers. They don't play this week. We'll go back and look at their game as they played BYU, and BYU undefeated, and BYU trying to make a case for the college football playoff. And, you know, didn't get to see much of the game because it was Friday night and we were at Greenbrier East, able to listen to a little bit of it coming back home after our game, and then I watched a little bit, but I fell asleep. I couldn't
Right.
make it to the end. But just what I've seen in a little bit, and you can correct me on this, that looked like that BYU pulled away, West Virginia got close, BYU pulled away,
Yeah.
West Virginia got close, and then West Virginia fell within the number, losing by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, but in the loss, though, I actually saw some positives. I didn't see any positives coming out of the Utah game.
yeah,
None.
they just got beat.
It was bad. It was bad across
Yeah.
the board. But actually, they outscored BYU 14-10 in the second half, and they had a couple bad things happen. Their best wide receiver, you complete a long pass to him, it bounces out of his hands, turns into an interception. They just don't have the type of offense this year that can really overcome deficits. They have to play from the lead or within striking distance 7 points. But I did see they played a lot better and hard, and I don't think he's losing the team. So I look for them. They'll sneak a couple victories down the
And I would say this, I think their bye week comes at a perfect time.
Oh, perfect. Got to get healed up. And, you know, everybody, we know no one wants to talk about injuries or cry about it, but they are really banged up at key positions.
Talking about a bye week, Marshall comes off of their bye week, and they've got a really tough game at home, 3:30 on Saturday, taking on Old Dominion.
Yeah, that Old Dominion team, they usually match up well with Marshall. I know we went a couple years ago to an overtime contest, and definitely Marshall got blown away down at ODU, a couple years ago. So this is one of those games. I think it's a must-win for Marshall to stay in contention in the Sun Belt.
I would agree because, you know, Old Dominion got a big blowout win at Virginia Tech. Now, you might say Virginia Tech's not Virginia Tech of old, but I think if you're Old Dominion and you can go to Blacksburg and not just win, but win the way they did, I think that's huge for them.
Yeah, you're not scared to come to Huntington and play Marshall, that's for sure.
That's for sure. All right, so that'll take care of our college football segment. We need to do what, Eric?
You need to find us at Warden Broadcast Network, like, share, and subscribe on YouTube TV and also on Facebook.
Yes, and I'm Face and Eric is Book. As we appreciate Regina Thomas, the warden, producing and directing. And now we'll dive in to the National Football League. And Eric will talk about some of the games that we witnessed over the weekend. And first, near and dear to your heart and now in your chest, the Cowboys. You and I sit with my brother Matt and watched Dallas really take apart the New York Jets. And even though the Jets may be the worst team in the NFL, their players get paid too. And
Yeah.
Dallas was really the game. It ended 37-23 two, but I don't think the score was ever that close. They had them like 30-3 at one point.
It was 30-3 at one point, and you had to talk me off the ledge because
Yeah.
I was like, "Look, this is a game."
I said, Dallas got this.
He's like, "Oh no, they haven't." But I'm going on. I think I dig too deep into it. But everybody gets paid, like you say. But Dallas had 4 of their 5 starting linemen out of the game.
And the one thing about it too, if you look at Dallas numbers, they're scoring really a lot at home and not so much on the road. I think it's like 40 at home and 17 on the road.
Yeah.
They put up 37, but I just thought Dallas was good in all 3 phases yesterday.
Yeah, they were. They got after the quarterback. They got sacks. They had pressures. They tackled well. Couple busted blown coverages, but nothing too big. And I was really pleased. I was really worried about Fields containing him, scrambling. Scrambling quarterbacks usually give the Dallas Cowboys fits, but I was real pleased. And you got to talk about my man Dak. Everybody wants to give him heck when he's losing, but nobody wants to talk about him. He has 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and 2 of them were off of receivers' hands. I mean, he's playing at an MVP level.
Yeah, our
in my
producer
opinion.
said we got like 10 minutes left. You might use 9 to talk about Dak Prescott. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to talk about Dallas, we got to talk about the Washington Commanders.
That's right.
And the big win they got after falling down 10-0. And
Man.
they outscore the Los Angeles / San Diego Chargers by 27 and win that game 27-10.
Yeah, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't.
No.
It was no contest. But they got a big boost with their great quarterback, Jaden Daniels, coming back, and it makes all the difference because you have to play defense different when he's there, and he's accurate as a passer. And if both of them can win this week, then Monday night in Dallas Saturday, that game looming 2 weeks from now is going to be a big one, Washington and Dallas.
Well, that's always a big one. And ladies and gentlemen, you should see with my brother Matt, a Washington fan, Eric a Dallas fan, and I'm sitting in the middle trying to be in between them. That'll be something else. But also you got to talk about 2 fantastic games, and we're going to get in actually 3 because they came down to the end. Of course, your barking dog, the Denver Broncos, not only you thought that they would cover, which they did, they won the game straight out. They had a lot of bite in their bark, and as they go in and give Philadelphia their first loss.
But you know what I loved about the game, because you and I watched it, and when Denver scored to go ahead, they already had their 2-point conversion. They already knew. They didn't call a timeout.
Right.
They didn't do any of that. That showed you that's championship caliber coach that's won a Super Bowl, and he's Sean Payton. He knows, like, go ahead, you have it ready. Guys believe in it, and they just went for the win, and it paid off.
Yeah, they were down 17-3 going into the fourth quarter. What Eric's alluding to, if you didn't hear or see or know anything about the game, 17-10. They got a touchdown to make it 17-16, and the conventional wisdom would be kick the extra point and tie the game. But like Eric said, no hesitation. I'm sure they worked on it all week.
Yeah.
They knew the play they were going to do. They knew they were going for it.
Executed.
They go for 2 and they get it 18-17. They then add a field goal to make Philadelphia have to go the length of the field to score a touchdown, and a questionable no call that it looked like that Goddard got pulled down that went for naught.
He got yanked.
Denver able to beat Philadelphia 21-17. But Eric, you know as well as I know on any level, if you keep getting by with 1-score victories, eventually the bottom's going to fall out.
And that's why I wanted to pick Denver. I actually thought the Eagles might lose that game because 2 weeks ago, block a kick. At the end,
the way they won
the
that
way
game.
they won a couple, and then against Tampa Bay, the way they won that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I said sometimes your luck kind of runs out. Not that they're lucky; they're defending Super Bowl champs, but they're not putting 4 quarters together. They haven't all season.
You're right. They didn't even complete a pass in the second half against Tampa, and they win that. They get a blocked field goal and return back for a touchdown that altered the entertainment world in the sports. I'll just say the sports entertainment world.
That's right.
For a touchdown. They were living on the edge, and then the edge got a little shorter. They fell off of it on Sunday.
They did.
But how about I told you Tampa Bay was going to go into Seattle, win the game straight out, and they did. And they were ahead, then they got behind, and then they got a pick. They kick a game-winning field goal. They beat Seattle, as I told you on this show they would, 38-35.
And I think this is another quarterback that doesn't get enough press. He was cast out of Cleveland.
You're talking about
Baker Mayfield is playing. He's playing at an MVP level too.
He is.
I mean, this guy, they're down, but they're never out because he believes in himself and he wills that team. Last drive of the game, he's going to score. He really believes it.
And if you remember last week, I said one of the biggest reasons, because Seattle's not, they have the 12th man, they got this big crowd, blah blah blah, but they don't win at home anymore. In fact, they're 3-2, both losses are at home. And if you look over the last 3-4, they have more home losses. And I think if you're going to be a championship level team, you have to take care of business at home.
Yeah, you have to win at home. You have to.
And that's why I felt that Tampa, because like you said, with Baker Mayfield, they're never out of it. And Tampa got a huge win. And how about the Sunday night game? Buffalo with the big whiteout, and it looked like Buffalo was going up and down the field, but they couldn't stick it in the end zone. And the Patriots find a way to beat them at the horn.
Well, that's one of the games, I've learned from you on this since we've been watching over the years. These divisional games, you got to throw the records out. You have to. These teams know each other. They're gonna. It's back and forth. Rarely do you see blowouts in division contests. You don't. And I even think the number's too big for the Giants against the Eagles on Thursday night. But we'll get to that.
Yeah,
Working down.
we'll get to that. And, another thing, too, I think Coach Vrabel coming in, I think he's changed the culture. Yeah. He's going to be a really good coach for the Patriots.
And he's going to be there to stay. So he has championship pedigree, and they believe in him.
All right, speaking of this week in the NFL, Thursday night, as you mentioned, at the Meadowlands, it'll be the Eagles and the Giants. I did not happen to catch the line. I got to believe Philadelphia is probably a
7.5.
Oh, 7.5. Yeah, I would think maybe 3.5 to 4.
Yeah,
7.5 seems like a lot.
It's a lot.
All right. Also, we got to talk about some of the big games. Seattle goes to Jacksonville. Jacksonville's playing Kansas City in the Monday night game, and that line may change depending on the outcome of the Monday night game. But that's a long trip. That's the third longest trip from one NFL city to another.
Yeah, that's basically.
Well, it's Seattle to Jacksonville is the third longest. Seattle to Tampa is the second longest. Seattle to Miami is the longest.
So that's a lot of travel time.
And speaking of Tampa, San Francisco and Tampa got moved from 1 o'clock to 4:25. That's the major late game. And the 49ers come in as an underdog, and they're very tempting for me to take them as a barking dog, but just stick on the game without picking a winner.
Yeah, I think the 49ers are doing what they need to. They have a lot of injuries in key places. But they got picked up Mac Brown. He's played really good at the quarterback position. And
Mac Jones.
Mac Jones. Mac Brown was the old coach. But Mac Jones is playing really well at the quarterback position. And I just really think that it's going to be tough for them, though, to go get a win with their injuries, and Tampa Bay's playing really good.
They really are. And I think the Sunday night game is going to be fabulous. Right now, Kansas City's a 1.5 point favorite over the Detroit Lions. Of course, that may change depending on the outcome of the Monday night game between Kansas City and Jacksonville.
Yeah, and you know what you'll get in that game. I think you'll get a lot of points. I think it'll be up and down.
The one thing, and let's see if you agree with me, Eric, I don't like that the NFL is going with 2 Monday night games. They had it last week. I don't like they're doing it next week. The Monday night game is Buffalo and Atlanta, and then Chicago at Washington. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, for one, you want to focus in on one game, and then the other, they stagger the times.
One's at 7:15, 8:15. But Monday night was always like the prime time.
The feature game.
That's why you play on Monday night. You didn't want to have another game going on
Yeah,
on
and
Monday
I think
night.
that's too much.
All right, well, see, we actually agree on that. How about that? So, by the way, before we get into our barking dog, if you have a comment that you'd like to share with either myself, Eric, or both of us, or the warden, the producer and director, put it in the comments. And Eric, before we get into our barking dogs, we need to do what?
You need to like, share, subscribe, Warden Broadcast Network on YouTube, and find us on Facebook.
And I'm facing he's booked. And by the way, this NFL portion was brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating. You can dial Modley's up at 304-253-HELP. Well, who's going to need the help this week? Because right now, it sure hadn't been Eric and I. We've both been hot. Eric 5-0 and he's barking dogs. I'm 4-1. And I can do math. Our combined, Eric, you and I, are 9-1. And over that stretch, we've only had the same team one time.
Yeah, just one time. And I think it was the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
So I'll lead off. I had to look. I looked through, and it was tough. It was tough for me this week. But I'm going to stick with the team that I've been riding for a long time, and I think they're in a must-need situation. But they're home dogs. The Ravens at home.
Against the Rams.
Ravens are getting points. I'm taking the Ravens. The Ravens have to defend. I don't know if they'll win. They have to play a lot better and try to get a win because they can't afford to go 1-5.
And what's the number?
7.5.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you see me writing this down. I got to make sure I write it down. The Ravens are a 7.5 point underdog. And of course, obviously, the only reason they're an underdog because they're beat up.
Yeah, and Lamar
Jackson's probably not going.
If he comes back, that'll go down to probably 2 or even.
And I'll tell you, I had a really tough time too because I was searching today, and a lot of the lines weren't out. And right before we started to record, I started looking at it, and I started thinking, man, which way to go. But it's a divisional game, but I got a road divisional. And I don't think they're going to win, but I think they cover. The Cleveland Browns against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh coming off a bye. Cleveland's coming back from London with a heartbreak loss to Minnesota. The line's 4.5. I think it'll be close. I think Pittsburgh wins on a last-second field goal, but the Browns cover.
Yeah, I like that pick because once you get Cleveland and Pittsburgh together, and that defensive front of Cleveland is as good as anyone, and I think right now the Steelers line still growing. So they may sack old man Rodgers at least 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, that game's in Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers will find a way to win, but like I said, maybe a last-second field goal. By the way, Eric and I, you can check us out on Video Productions on Friday night. We'll be at Glen Daniel, a battle of Raleigh County between 1 and 5 Shady, 2 and 4 Liberty. Airs at 6:30, kicks at 7 o'clock. And one final time, Eric, we need to what?
Like, share, and subscribe. Warden Broadcast Network on Facebook and YouTube.
And your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are, man, it's been a good. We're at the halfway point, I guess, of the season.
Halfway
right?
for college.
For college.
We're in the 7th week of high school, and we're just past the quarter week or the quarter, I guess, measurement for the NFL.
So my final thoughts are: the leaves are falling, man, and the football's heating up, and I'm ready for it.
And Halloween will be here before you know it. And what are we going to dress up? Eric and I won't have to dress up, will we? We'll go as face and book. That sounds like a couple of detectives, right?
Hey, or your brother could say, he'd say you Joe Buck and I'm Troy.
Yeah, something like that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you watching here. And this is our podcast. You may not agree with us,
but
I'm Maris Lowery.
And I'm Eric Thomas.
Until next time, have a great evening, everybody.